Hey there friendos, Newbornkilik here, welcoming you back to another awesome Zelda-related video. Today we're going to be going over 5 amazingly creepy, maybe spooky, mysterious, and just downright sad locations in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Today I am joined by 4 other amazing, incredibly great Zelda/Nintendo YouTubers that you all need to be checking out. They'll be Edible Incredible, Nayru, the Tyler Townsend himself, of course, and Xeno Gamer. I'm Newbornkilik, and together we are the Shiekah Squad. Let's get into the video. The Tundra Plateau, as with most areas in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, is no stranger to destruction. Its location just to the west of Hyrule Castle and just a little ways off of Rito Village would make it a wonderful outpost between the two. The first thing you'll notice are these massive, gargantuan mushrooms, almost as if time itself has forgotten about this place and just allowed these spores to really take hold and grow without any outside influence. The inclusion of a shrine built into this structure definitely seems to hint at the fact that this may be a very important structure that we just don't really know about. There are these strange heads that we can find adorning the outside, and while we can't necessarily pin down what this might mean or what these heads are meant to symbolize, the inclusion of that shrine makes me think it must have been pretty important. When you think of most shrines, they kind of just popped up out of the ground or something, whereas this one had a structure built around it, kind of implying that whoever built it knew that there was a shrine there, so that the shrine could easily rise up. Looking further into it, we can see 4 pillars in the middle. Into these 4 pillars, you are meant to place 4 sacred orbs, each of a different color. Now, one of these definitely seems to imply Shiekah. Nice purple, and S, depending on the game, those can be colors that we would associate with the Shiekah race. The other 4 pillars are a bit less clear. However, we have the basic colors of the Goron and green, which I suppose could be the Ruto in this case, or the Deku, depending on just how old this structure is. It is my belief that this may have been some kind of secret organization. Each one of these races would have an orb, and to get in, they would all need to bring their orb to this, so to say, meeting. The area itself is quite hidden, and the structure is a bit unspectacular from a distance, even being hidden by a large cliff face on one side. I can't really shake it, but something about these 4 pillars really leads me to believe that this structure is something rather important. What was this structure? What was it intended for? Most importantly of all, why was it built perfectly to house an ancient shrine? To that end, I suppose it will have to remain a mystery.
Just outside of Hyrule Castle, there is ruins of a small village that tells the tragic story of not having enough time to react. Mabe Village Ruins lies next to the remains of Lon Lon Ranch, and while seeing a familiar and nostalgic area laid to waste immediately triggers a harrowing response out of any seasoned Zelda player, Mabe Village shows a terrifying reality. Unlike Mabe Village of Link's Awakening, where this settlement gains its name, there's no longer signs of tranquility or peace. Buildings have been demolished and leveled to their bases. Guardian remains are nestled well within the confines of village walls, and active guardians still patrol the area looking for any signs of life to destroy. Because of its close proximity to Hyrule Castle, Mabe Village was likely the next settlement hit by the calamity. Like a coastal city unaware of an approaching tsunami, Mabe Village was overrun by guardians and disappeared in what Creating a Champion describes as a flash of light. The village was caught off guard. Carts of hay that were likely being transported to the ranch were left completely abandoned. Rusty weapons and shields are scattered at the forefront of the village, showing that what little defense they had was quickly dispatched but was no match for the onslaught coming their way. Further down the road leading to the village, there's a wagon that was destroyed. This was likely a few lucky villagers that managed to escape the initial attack and tried to seek refuge at nearby Hyrule Garrison. Whether they managed to survive or not is unclear, but if any survivors of Mabe Village exist, they would have made their way to Fort Hateno and then to Hateno Village for safety. Mabe Village shows the extent of how unprepared Hyrule was for the Great Calamity, and just how quickly it annihilated the kingdom.
Giza Crater is a location in Breath of the Wild I just discovered for the first time earlier this year. But as soon as I lay my eyes on this giant crater in the ground, that somehow took me 3 years to notice, I knew there had to be a good story behind this. But as for most locations in Breath of the Wild, that story is never told. leaving it up to us to fill in the blanks. Giza crater is located on the far northwestern side of Hyrule, not too far from Rito Village, and I think that the location itself might be the biggest clue to solving the mystery of this place. Giza crater may be named after the large crater in the center of the valley it dwells in, but other craters surround the central circle as well. This whole area is covered in rocks, from the inanimate ones lining the crater to the sentient pebblets and even a stone talus found in the center of the crater. It shows little vegetation and little of anything but these indentations and rocks. But the thing is, I think it once did. I think that this whole valley was once buried away with a divine beast. We know from tales of Hyrule's past that after the calamity of 10,000 years ago, the divine beast were buried, and by the instruction of a prophecy, re-excavated shortly before the fall of Hyrule 100 years ago. We even see and can find the location of Von Boris's excavation from a flashback cutscene. And that's what I believe the story of Giza Crater is as well, the former resting place of divine beast Va Meadow.
What's up guys, it's Edible Incredible, and today I'll be looking at a couple obscure locations that reside on the outskirts of Hyrule Castle. I'll save the more juicy one for last, but first let's look at Coronal Hills, located directly east of Hyrule Castle. This place is filled with empty tree trunks that were so large that they must have housed some massive ass trees. At first I assumed they were simply cut by guardian beams, but the name of this location just might say otherwise. Coronal Hills, and Coronal is an indentation in the battlements of a fort or castle, used for shooting or firing missiles through. Of course, as far as we know, Hylians don't do battle with guns, like what real-world Coronals are utilized for. Hylians usually do so with swords and such, although bow and arrows could still be greatly taken advantage of in this location. I wouldn't be surprised if the Hylians cut down these massive trees to make good use of this high ground in crafting plenty of Coronals to shoot arrows through, and protect themselves at the same time. A battle strategy that's been used in real life countless times. Who knows who they were preparing to fend off, or if this strategy was ever actually used, but it appears as if it would protect Hyrule Castle from an ambush quite effectively, or at the very least in protecting the east side of the castle. Before we get to the next location, I want to point out that after doing a little more research, I've realized that Coronal Hills is actually named after Mount Coronal from the Minish Cap. I still believe this could house a beneficial tactic in war, but I don't want to completely brush aside the possibility of these trees being cut by guardians or a divine beast. Let me know what you think. On an interesting side note, northeast and not too far from Coronal Hills lies a military base. My other obscure location is known as the Castletown Prison, located directly west of Hyrule Castle. The intent behind this place is a lot more obvious, locking up Hyrule's worst criminals on an island. Similar to how real-world prison sites are chosen to be surrounded by water, so that escaping is that much tougher. Unfortunately for criminals of 100 years ago, it seems as if their cells were obliterated in the wake of the calamity, which caused these prisoners to most likely perish while they are trapped in these confinements. One hell of a brutal way to experience Hyrule's apocalypse, hearing the screams of guards who probably fled the scene, while all the prisoners could do was wait for their impending doom. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks to Newbornkilik for having me on. And now, on to the next human who shall describe another cool location.
Breath of the Wild's Hyrule is beautiful, but it's also haunting. The after effects of the devastating invasion that nearly wiped out the world is plain to see. Stone ruins, wet with moss, and in the slow process of being reclaimed by nature, offer us windows into that terrible day in which Hyrule would be forever scarred. And I'd like to peek through one of those windows. We don't get to see the day of the invasion, aside from a few scant moments, but the ruins speak, and if you listen, they'll tell you a story. I'd like to guess at one of those stories, that of a solitary guard tower. Just outside of the Hyrule outpost, and atop Scout Hill, sits the ruined building. It's easy to imagine this tower on the night of the invasion, situated in a position to oversee 2 high-traffic bridges. A Hylian guard, possibly 2, go about their business. Perhaps they knew of the horror that awaited them, perhaps not. Inevitably, the Reaper came to collect his dues. 6 legs instead of a black cloak, and instead of a scythe, a powerful blue beam to snuff the life out of any it chooses to target. Maybe the guards were prepared, or maybe they sat at the table relaxing. What we can see is the exact angle at which the destructive beam ripped through the tower. Bisecting the table effortlessly, one guard is instantly killed while the other is thrown back into a nearby shelf. So he runs. He dives out of the tower just as another blast from the cruelly named Guardian renders the tower destroyed. It gives chase, but he survives by running down the cliffs, tripping and rolling through the cold mud to the river below. After struggling back to land, he makes for the outpost, being relieved by the familiar sight of Proxim Bridge. The Guardian is not far behind. He can hear the terrifying shuffle of its many legs, so he runs. He only has to turn the corner to the safety of the outpost. Almost there, he turns and yells for help, only to be greeted by death. There was no help. The outpost is on fire and something horrifying hovers over Hyrule Castle. There is no help, he is alone, his companions are all dead, his home is destroyed, his family is probably gone, and now he's attracted the attention of multiple guardians. So he flees across Proxim Bridge. He uses the pillars as cover from the blasts of the guardians, each one shattering on impact. His hair wet with blood, his armor heavy with mud and water, and his soul crushed. The soldier leans behind a pillar and takes off his helmet. He cries. In the throes of grief and terror, he decides he doesn't want to be taken out by these monsters. He doesn't want to be cruelly killed by these automatons which were meant to protect him, but he never really trusted. He looks over the side. The water is rushing fast. He's exhausted. He doesn't have time to take his armor off. He won't be swimming to safety. The Guardians close in. He thinks of his family. Maybe he should charge the Guardians and die a hero, but who would be there to see it? No, he'd rather meet Hylia on his own terms, rather than at the hands of this possessed demon. He prays, to Hylia, to the spirits, to anyone who would listen, and in the distance, almost as if his prayers have been answered, he sees a dragon. The guard smiles. He's been forgiven. He can rest easy. The sound of a Guardian's beam rips through the air, but the spot it lands is empty. The guard throws himself off the bridge into the water, and as he sinks to the bottom, as he is carried to Lake Hylia to rest eternally, his thoughts drift to his wife. His story did not go unnoticed, though. It was observed by the forest spirits and those of the sky. And, as legends do, the story of the guard taking his life into his own hands turns into a story of sorrow. And Proxim Bridge gains a reputation as a place where those with no hope go to end it all. Some kind souls patrol Proxim Bridge. Though they feel hopeless in their own way, they seek to stop others from meaninglessly throwing their lives away, and joining the Hylian guard in his weathered tomb at the bottom of Lake Hylia.
Thank you so much, Edible Incredible, Tyler Townsend, Nayru, and Xeno Gamer for joining me today in this amazing Zelda video. Let me know if there are any other areas in the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild that you'd like me to take a look at, and hey, you never know, maybe they'll be featured in a future video. Anyway, I'm Newbornkilik, and together we are the Shiekah Squad, going dark.